Hello and welcome to this first video on the pre-release for the Winter UK and in 2022. Here is the pre-release. You will have the pre-release in the course, so please do have a look at it. Make sure you're really familiar with it, and obviously doing this set of videos where I'm going to go through a solution for it, you will get used to it and will know it back to front. So this pre-release, it says an organisation has a visitor car park with 20 car parking spaces numbered 1 to 20. Car park spaces can be booked by visitors up to 2 weeks before the date they're needed, as long as the space is available. Visitors request a car parking space by stating the date in the 2-week period which it is required. They give the licence number of the car to be parked and their name. The next available space, beginning at space 1, is allocated and the given data and booking are stored. The system is required to record the car park bookings. Write and test a program or programs for the visitor car park booking system to work for a static period of 2 weeks. Your programs must include appropriate prompts for entry of data. Data must be validated on entry. All outputs, including error messages, need to be set out clearly and understandably. All variables, constants and other identifiers must have meaningful names. You will need to complete these 3 tasks. Each task must be fully tested. So basically, if you have a quick read of the 3 tasks, here is the 3 tasks on the screen, you will see that the first task, we're basically setting up all our data structures. We're going to allow the person to pick a day between that 1 and 14 days. And then we're going to check to see if there's a car parking space available, and if there is, we can allocate them the space. And then one of the other things that we're going to do for task 1 is just sort of reset all the data. Now we only have to worry about them booking for 1 day. We don't have to sort of say, oh, they want to have a space, you know, for a certain number of days. Are they available? We don't have to worry about that. We're just booking 1 space on 1 day. Task 2, we're going to actually slightly amend task 1, and we have to redesign it so that spaces 1 to 5 are accessible spaces, and then out of the 20 spaces, 6 to 20 are general spaces. And we need to sort of adjust task 1 to take that into account. So we ask them, do they want a general space or do they want an accessible space? And then for task 3, we're basically just doing the stats at the end. So we're just doing lots of reports at the end to find out the number of accessible spaces, the number of general spaces, etc. So it's just the reporting side of it. Okay, so let's have a think about the data structures that we're going to use. Now, as you will have learned in the course, what we have in our data structures are arrays, basically. So we are going to use an array. It will be the simplest way in the long run to store everything. And what we need to think about is how many arrays, how we're going to structure it. So for example, if we have day 1, or we have a day, we've got day 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way down to day 14, we also need to think about the spaces. So for the car parking spaces, we've got 20. So we've got space 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to space number 20. Now, we could, if we wanted to, do an array for each day like this. So that would be an array. And then we'd have a separate array for day 2, a separate array for day 3, separate array for day 4, etc. So that means we would have 14 arrays with made up of 20. So for example, if I did day 1, we could do day 1 equals, and then we could just put something like, I don't know, 0 to show that it's empty or something like that. And there are other quick ways to create arrays actually, rather than just putting a blank 0 in it, but I'll show you that in a minute. Now that is absolutely fine, you can do it that way. And I did seriously, when I was thinking about this problem myself and thinking about the best way to do this so that you can remember it for the exam, I did feel that there's going to be a lot of code, because if they pick a day, we need to then have a big if statement or a case statement to see and add it into that day. So what I'm going to be doing is, in my code, is I'm going to be using one very long array. Now, If you prefer this way, obviously my code that I do for this is just my solution, or it's one way to do it. There's many ways to do this code, but if you want to do it that way that I've just shown you, you can. However, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to use one very long array. So basically an array, or we'll need two, but we'll talk about that in a minute. We're actually going to have one long array. And the way that we're going to structure it is we're going to have, I'll call it spaces, for example, like that, and it will be 280 array elements long. So it's going to have 280 elements. And the reason for that is we've got 14 days and we're timesing that by 20. And if you times 14 by 20, it's actually 280. And what we do is basically elements 0 to 19 are for day 1. And then we have elements 20 to 29, that would be for day 2. And we're basically saying part of the array is split out and allocated for each one. So that would be day 3. Okay. So it's actually, this is going to be a much neater way to do it, and there's going to be a lot less code, and that's the main reason why I've decided to do it this way, because there's less code for you to learn and you're not repeating the same code over and over again 14 times. So we'll have a look at this in a minute, and I will explain a bit more, but just remember that with arrays, every element in the array is a separate variable and we just access it using those square brackets. Do go over and have a look at the array code in the course if you need to, but this is how we're going to do it. And just to sort of demonstrate to you, here below I've sort of written out how part of the array would be. So this sort of part here with sum of day 2, we would basically count 20 elements. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So this here is all day 1. And then from then on, it would be day 2 there. Okay, and don't worry about how we're going to do this. Obviously, I'll show you in the code how we're going to do it. But it would obviously go up to day 14 and 280 elements. Now, I'm not going to draw 280 elements because that would just take forever. But when we print it out in our code, you'll see as well. But just remember as well that for every array, we have an index. And our index is how we allocate and how we access anything in our array. And we would say, for example, if you wanted, the index here, if I write the index in, that's index 0. Remember, it's a 0 indexed array. So it should be a 0, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this is our index there. And obviously it will go up to 280. Okay, so let's start programming that, and I will come back to this, don't worry, and we'll see how it will all fit in nicely, and it will be a lot less code than having 14 separate arrays.